Freedom, 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 yes, freedom. Some people who say separation is the key. Some people who stay and pretend to be free. Some would be staying in dilemma. Listen to your heart and choose a life. I wanna live in peace. I wanna be free. I wanna live in peace. I wanna be free. Freedom, 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 yes, freedom, 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 yes, freedom. No more bribery in my mama land, no. No more slavery in my mama land, no. My God created me and put me where I should be. My God created me and gave me all the things I need. Who are you to stop me from being who I am? Who are you to take away what I have? Who are you to stop me from being who I am? Who are you to take away what I have? Freedom, 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 yes, freedom, 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 yes, freedom. I can say I deserve the right to say I cannot stay a second-class citizen in my mama land. You can say you deserve the right to say, do you want to stay a second-class citizen in your mama land? Sharia laws must no longer be my love. I'll be okay, free and proud with you, my love. Freedom, 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 yes, freedom, 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 yes, freedom, 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 yes, freedom, 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 yes, freedom.
السلام عليكم مشاهدين منبر صوت الشعب. خليني أسلم عليكم جميعا ونقول لكم صباح الخير بالتوقيت بتاعتنا هنا في سنترال تايم، ومساء الخير أو جود افترنون بالتوقيت بتاعت واشنطن أو نيويورك تايم. وأنا سعيد إنه أكون معكم في هذا الصباح، وحلقة بتاعت الليلة أن إحنا هيكون نستضيف ضيف مهم من الضيوف بتاعتنا هنا بنستضيفهم في منصة بتاعت صوت الشعب في اللايف فيسبوك، وكذلك في يوتيوب، وأيضا في كلاب هاوس عبر ساوث سودان بوليتيكال كلاب. الليلة نحن نستضيف دكتور بيتر بيارا جاك في حلقة مهمة، واللي هي إمكانية قيام انتخابات في جنوب السودان، وهل يمكن أن تقوم انتخابات حرة ونزيهة أو لا يمكن أن تقوم. Today our guest, actually we have one of our very important guests, and always he was us here. He used to accept the invitation from South Sudan Political Club. We are going to host Dr. Peter Biara Jack, and he will be talking about the election. Are the election possible in South Sudan 2 years from now? And can they really be free and fair election in South Sudan? ده topic بتاعتنا. حكومة قريبات ده حكومة قدمت الورقة، كتبت خطاب من متحدة في جنوب السودان، وقاعدية طالبوا من يونمس والأمم المتحدة إنه يتم دعم الكلية الانتخابية electoral vote system في جنوب السودان to be established. We are going to ask Dr. Peter Biara Jack, is it possible in this situation now, whereby there is chaos in the country, there is a war in Upper Nile, Greater Upper Nile, Chololand, and also Bibor and the rest of the areas. The Abyei is not stable. Also, there is chaos in Equatoria. How the election going to go ahead? That's well, Dr. Peter Biara Jack is going to answer that question. So let me welcome our guest, Dr. Peter Biara Jack. Before I welcome Dr. Peter Biara Jack, I have video. I want to play that video to the audience, and we will start with that video, Dr. Peter Biara Jack, to make a comment about that video. Let me play it because Dr. Peter Biara actually he made comment in that video too. Just listen.
A country on the cusp of grave human rights violations. South Sudan got its independence in 2011 and became one of the youngest states in the world. But the abductions of women and girls have become a regular occurrence.
South Sudan is engulfed in communal or ethnic conflict. These conflicts, they pit together armed militias from one community versus another. Sometimes you have two tribes or two communities organized against one community or against other communities. This is the reality that has been happening for South Sudan since independence, primarily because the government of South Sudan has been unable to provide protection for the civil population. So this responsibility has fallen in the hand of youth and young people from those communities that face security challenges. So you see a situation where these militias, they arm and they go and attack, they engage in cattle raiding, they engage in the abduction of women and children.
Children in South Sudan continue to be in grave danger and face a humanitarian crisis. 70% of children are out of school, and diseases and gender-based violence are rife. And South Sudan government has been accused of not protecting its citizens.
At the end, the national dialogue came up with one strong resolution. This resolution was that President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar should exit. They should leave power. They should retire from the politics of South Sudan. And this is the common theme that you've been hearing consistently, particularly within South Sudan and also by some of the international actors. However, we have not really heard something like that from the region, particularly from the IGAD and from the African Union. As we speak, and I am sure this is no longer a surprise to anyone in the world, President Salva Kiir is sick. He's ailing. And as we can clearly see, he's unable to govern the country.
Even the international community says the situation is bad in Juba.
Sexual and gender-based violence against women and girls of all ages in South Sudan is relentless. The ongoing conflicts in places like the Central Equatorias, Jonglei, Lakes, Unity, Western Barghazal and Warab states have also seen the abductions of women and girls who are either forced into marriage or become sexual slaves. Young men are recruited to fight on the basis that they are free to kidnap women and girls in forced marriage or as sexual slaves. In a country where the bride price is exorbitant in terms of cattle, the freedom to abduct young girls and force them into marriage is a terrible incentive to commit abduction and rape.
South Sudan government has yet to respond to these damning allegations. But as the African Union summit is coming up next month in Ethiopia, this matter is likely to dominate on the sidelines of the annual gathering. Kylie Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Dr. Peter Biar Ajak, welcome to the Voice of the People Forum.
Thank you so much, Edward Achek, for inviting me once more to come and have a conversation with you and with our people who tune in. These people are people that are concerned about the situation in our country. They know that our country is suffering. Our country is being known for very terrible things. And we are very competent people as South Sudanese. We are people of great honor and of dignity, and we excel. If you see also in the World Cup, this young boy from Australia, he almost scored, and he would have knocked out Messi. Imagine. These are the things that we are known for. So to have a country now that is being known for all these atrocities, death, destruction, infighting, this is not who we are. And I think we have an opportunity to show to the world who truly we are. And this struggle, we tell our people, is not just a political struggle, because the destruction that has happened to our country is not just only political or physical destruction. It is also a moral destruction. Our values have been destroyed as a people. If you go to Juba now and you see what is happening, you will realize that we are in a complete moral depravity. Our society is descending further and further into unknown. So to really reverse all of this destruction and create a path toward renewal is going to be both a physical and a spiritual journey for us. And we tell our people this is a struggle for the essence of who we are as a people of South Sudan. So that video you saw there, this is the situation that you yourself have been covering for the last several months. It happened first in Upper Nile State, and then it happened also in Jonglei. This is the intercommunal violence. And we wonder sometimes, where do they get the weapons? Where do they get all those ammunitions? They don't have ministries of foreign affairs. These are, people in the middle of Jonglei. Where are they getting arms? And you know that this is sometimes a deliberate policy that comes from the state. And it's terrible that this thing has been allowed to continue for so long. And it's quite unfortunate. Very unfortunate, especially the scenes of what happened in Bor and what happened after the return of the White Army militia. These are the things that have been happening. And you have Juba here claiming that they have force and that they should be contributing to regional peace and security, sending troops to Congo. And they are unable to intervene. This is just a few hours from Bor, several hundred kilometers from Juba. And this just shows the duplicity of our regime and lack of its focus on fundamental issues that actually matter to the welfare of the citizens. So very unfortunate situation, but we want to raise this issue with the African Union. We want to raise it with the IGAD because we realize that the government, we have raised it so many times, and this issue is not happening. You know very well what the president said last time. what he said in the situation in Upper Nile, what he said in this about the situation in Jonglei, and now nobody is surprised that this is what is happening in the country. So quite unfortunate, but looking forward really to discussing these issues and how we navigate our way out of all of this quagmire. Because even though something is the whole society, the whole situation is hopeless, we cannot just talk about it and complain without really thinking seriously about what is the option out, and then trying to build consensus around those options, defining a strategy that need to be followed to ensure that we realize freedom. So thank you, Edward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor. And you are welcome again to the Voice of the People Forum. It's good actually you make comment about the video I just played and connecting that video to the current political situation in the country. So our topic today, we need to focus on, are the election possible in South Sudan 2 years from now? And can it be a really free and fair election? Dr. Peter Biarajak. So we want you to talk about this.
Yes, thank you so much, Edward. You know very well for the last 2 years, I have been talking a lot about elections from the moment that I arrived. I argue that we have a country where the president is illegitimate. We have a president that was appointed to be president. This appointment was made by the parliament on the 9th of July, 2011, after the declaration of the independence of South Sudan. You all recall, after Wani Iga read the Declaration of Independence, President Salva had to be appointed. Had to be sworn in, and that swearing in happened. And obviously, you know very well, there was no elections that happened. The election that happened before were for a certain position that exists as a result of the CPA, called the President of the Government of South Sudan. This was an anomaly that was created by the CPA. So that was what happened at that time. Now, in July, we got independence. So there is no such a thing called the government of South Sudan anymore, or the government of Southern Sudan. There was now the government of the Republic of South Sudan. And there has to be a continuity of the government. So that's what happened. So we had to explain this for people to understand that really part of the problem that was happening in the country was a crisis of legitimacy. Because you have both the presidency and the parliament that were illegitimate. And this is clear because people continue to argue about the election of 2010. But to be honest with you, look at the governors. Governors were also elected. What happened to them? Why are they not there, the governors, those of Kunpoch? I think that was a governor that was elected in Upper Nile.
Yes.
As in Jonglei, we had Kwal Manyang. He was the elected governor. What happened to him? So if there was something about legitimacy of those things, then those people would have remained. The president would have not had a reason to fire them.
And you have Shuatong also in Rumbek, who was the first governor to be removed by the grief.
Yes, actually, it was before the 2013 crisis. This is when we start seeing this pattern where the president now began removing governors that he thought were not loyal to him or were not backing him in the SPLM, because by then there was a struggle that was already happening in the SPLM between the president and Dr. Riek Machar, who was his deputy. So you cannot use the election of 2010 as the basis for legitimacy, right? So that was a crisis number one. You have a president that was appointed, and the basis of his entire appointment was that he would organize elections. And there was a specific time that was actually mentioned when these elections were supposed to be organized. And that was 2015, right? So he was appointed on the July 9, 2011, and given a 4-year mandate to organize election. And the reason was simple. You cannot have a country just get independence and immediately organize elections. because you need to build institutions. And this was one of the reasons why the UN mission was actually deployed, was to help the government to build institutions. This was the essence of the South Sudan development plan, right? There was a strategy that the government has been working in coordination with the international community and the donors on how to actually immediately from independence to help South Sudan build core functions of government, right? So that it is prepared to be able to organize elections. Yeah. But then we know what happened. Immediately there was this power struggle in the SPLM, and then boom, right? The war happened. And with the war, the president used the war as an excuse now to not organize the election, right? Because by then, the reason why it even got to violence was that it appeared that the president did not really control SPLM. Because what was the basis of the disagreement? It was whether the chairman has a right to appoint 5% of the delegates. And people were saying, delegates are the one that will come and elect. These are the ones that represent the party. So how do you have other delegates that are appointed and delegates that are representative? So all the delegates must be elected, right? That was one. Two was what will happen with the deputies and the secretary general. And he wanted to be the one to appoint them when they used to be elected, because he forgot in the 1994 convention, the very first one, he was elected and he was a deputy. So if it was just appointed, then why not then give Dr. John the power to be able to appoint the deputy, right? Imagine, so he want to now reverse how things were done. And the same thing with the Secretary General, right? So Secretary General was an appointee of the National Liberation Council, and he want now to change all of that. That was the second issue. Most of the party at that time did not agree with the president. And then the third issue now was how people were going to vote in the election of the chairman. They want people to show hand, vote of hand, right? This is what Moy used to do to control the Kanu, right? So they were all anti-democratic, and he used the power of force now to try to jam it through, right? The SPLM, and that's how the war happened. So you could see from then, president was afraid of the election, and this is why he had to actually personalize security organizations, right? This is why he built the national security, because he knows the minute he will lose the control of the SPLM and he has no legitimacy, the only way he would hold on to power was by using a security sector that was willing to leave its national mandate and focus on a simple thing called regime security, right? There's a difference between national security and a regime security. And it's usually up to the security organization to choose what they focus, because the mandate became just to keep Salva Kiir safe. It's no longer to keep the country safe. And this is why you see then the country then descended deeper and deeper into the anarchy, because for them, focus was the regime survival. And this is why you always see Juba is safe and the oil fields are safe, because these are strategically the areas that are vital to the survival of this regime, not what happened to the people. So it's not a government that is interested in actually protecting the people, right? So elections now were postponed, right? So you remember they were postponed in 2015 to 2018. Now 2018 back then, since then, the president has been unable to end the crisis that he created in 2013 with Riek Machar. So the good thing is, definitely we know that, yes, we have a lot of crises in the country, but in my opinion, government need to be congratulated on taking this step, because this step is an admission that they have failed, right, to create the conditions that are needed on their own that will allow the elections to be held. And they understand that the international community is now aware that they are not a legitimate government. And they just survive by extending their mandates, right? They will be isolated, and they will continue to be isolated to the extent that they will become too vulnerable. And the international community may force them to do the thing that ought to be done to ensure that there is a transition that takes place in South Sudan. Because South Sudan is not an island. It's part of the international community. It's part of the African Union. It's part of IGAD. It's part of the United Nations. Right? So, and this is why it's so important that people really understand how the international security system works, right? And the essence of nation state, right? Yes, there is sovereignty. No one can ever come and try to tell South Sudanese what to do. There is sovereignty. But we also know, and after so many years, right, of history and observing this, that there are cases where the state failed to carry out its mandate. And there is a breakdown of order and security to the extent that it begins to affect the security of other states, including the neighboring states. So if you see now, because of the war in South Sudan, Uganda is hosting 1 million refugees from South Sudan. Because of the war from South Sudan, 400,000 are in Kenya. Because of the war in South Sudan, 400,000 are in Ethiopia. Because of the war in South Sudan, 500,000 is in Sudan. Right? And these countries are dealing with limited resources. If it is land, it's limited. Water is limited. There is population growth that is happening all over the region. Right? So if you are unable to handle your affairs simply because somebody is so incompetent, cannot build the institutions, and have such a fragile ego, cannot accept that he cannot do what he cannot do, and others are bearing consequences of these actions, then they also begin to think they have a role to play in making sure that this solution that is also creating conditions for them is resolved. That is first. Second, sovereignty is responsibility. If you look at how the international scholarship on the understanding of sovereignty evolved, right? What you have to first understand is that there is a distinction of sovereignty, right? There is juridical sovereignty. That is sovereignty by the virtue that you are recognized as a country in the international security system, right? So you are a member of the United Nations, you are a member of the African Union, other states have diplomatic relation with you. This give you sovereignty. This is a legal sovereignty. It's sovereignty because by law and by the norms and practices that exist and that handle the relations among states, you are also a state. You have a seat on the table. That is juridical sovereignty. And then there is practical sovereignty, right? That is the empirical sovereignty, the ability to actually project sovereignty within your country, within your state. Is South Sudan empirically a sovereign state? Right? Our air, our entire space is still controlled by the Sudan. Khartoum is the one that protects the airspace of South Sudan up to now. More than a decade after our independence, and the country from which we got independence from, which many of us are always suspicious to, is the one protecting our airspace. They're the one that usually support the rebels, and they're the one that control the airspace. It is a practically sovereign state. How about the borders? Practically, you can enter and leave however you want to South Sudan. Right? They can only control the airport. They can't control the border. So that is not really the sovereignty. Right? And then what about the functions of a sovereign state? Because a state is not so that just you are a president and you get to control the oil and you can just distribute it how you want and appoint people. That is not the meaning of state. The meaning of state is that there are particular functions that you must provide to the people that live within your jurisdiction. Number one, security, right? You must provide security, law and order. There must be justice, right? That you must provide within your. So when that doesn't exist, and then people come to suffer, then you have failed the responsibility of sovereignty. And the failure of the responsibility of sovereignty is what brought the notion of responsibility to protect. That if a state has failed in its discharge of sovereign functions and civilians are suffering and other state security is being jeopardized, then the international community has a responsibility to protect those people. Right? So there has been evolution in the thinking of sovereignty and the role of other countries in this. And the problem in Juba is that there is very limited understanding of this. And they should make use of people like Francis Deng. Francis Deng was a major contributor to this scholarship, right? Like when he was at Brookings, this is when this whole understanding was coming, because there were too many issues that were happening. There was the problem of IDPs, right? Internally displaced person. There was no way to categorize them, because what the international community had understood for quite long was refugees. But the notion of internally displaced person was not there. And that one was a very unique challenge. And it required really diagnosing and understanding why also international community has a responsibility to protect those people. That it wasn't just only the refugees, those who have crossed the borders, but even those who were within the borders deserve a right to be protected. Right? So the thinking within the international community about the role of state has been evolving. Right? So that one is very important to establish. So in Juba, they don't get this. And for all these years, right, Salva Kiir has just been extending and postponing the election, extending and postponing the election. And one of the reasons why he was able to do that was that there wasn't really a deeper understanding within the Security Council, and particularly within the United States, about what was really happening in South Sudan. Right? There was these belief that somehow President Kiir was going to pull this off and he will organize a transition, or when it becomes too difficult for him, he will do the right thing and step down. And we have been telling them that there's no single day that will come when President Kiir is going to step down, right? Where he will accept to put down political power. That single day will never happen. And for him to survive, right, he's going to be using everything and everybody that he has at his disposal, whether you are loyal to him, whether you are not with him, all of this, and he's going to remain there and not do the right thing. Every time when the elections come, he will always find a way not to do the election and extend the government and create more chaos, as he has been doing for the last 17 years of his power. Right? So this message has been getting through and people understand. And actually, we were already thinking of how to mandate the UNMISS to provide support in coordination with the government and make sure that the elections happen and that these elections are inclusive, right? Inclusive, that everybody participate in them, and that these elections are credible and that they are transparent, that they are free and fair, right? And that all the functions that the government will carry out will be carried out in coordination and conjunction with UNMISS. The good thing is now the government has requested that on its own, because our worry was if the government did not request this and say it opposes this, then depending on the ability to lobby and mobilize other actors, it could be an issue with like China and Russia that have veto power. But the good thing now that the government has requested this, now we know that at least the presidency and President Kiir in particular finally accept that he's unable to do the mandate for which he was tasked to be the president. So it's going to be interesting to see what he runs on. I know that there is this story of roads. He has been going to the roads. Well, that is his part. He's the only one now with the media, and he's the only one with a platform to talk. And when the elections do happen, and they are free and fair elections, we also have our platform to talk and to really reveal how much these roads are costing to the people of South Sudan. You know, how much resources that they are taking, right? Yeah, people are celebrating and clapping hands. But once the data become out, and how even they are poorly constructed and probably will not last much, this issue now will become central because the President Kiir is making it to a central point of his debate. And he has to be challenged. And he has to know that it's not Riek Machar alone that is going to challenge him. We are also going to challenge him. Many of us, we will challenge him. And we are going to come and campaign in the election. Otherwise, If we cannot participate in the election, that means these elections are not inclusive. And if they are not inclusive, we will wonder how the United Nations will then come to support elections that are not inclusive. And we will wonder where the United Nations will get such funding, particularly because we know the United States will not support elections that are not inclusive.
Let go ahead, Dr. Biar. Actually, is South Sudan ready for free, fair election, given the failure to implement the RCs or the peace agreement?
Well, the one thing that the government is saying in that letter is that they have failed to implement the RCs, right? And that they are not going to implement the RCs, right? And if the elections are going to happen in 2 years from now, then those aspirations and goals and objectives mentioned in the RCs need to be achieved in one way or another, right? That means there has to be a way to provide security. And the government has said that it is not going to do that. Now, this is a direct contradiction to what those of Tutkel are doing right now, graduating these forces. Okay, where are they? Why are they not being deployed? And this is one of the conditions, by the way, that is going to come from the UNMISS, right, and from the UN. UN is this is not going to be a free lunch here. And the problem is, South Sudan has created such a bad faith within the international community. Like, if you talk to anybody, right, anybody, diplomats, security officials, one thing they will tell you about President Salva Kiir is that this guy can never implement what he has agreed to do. They will say he will always agree, but when it comes to implementation, he will never implement. So you are dealing with a president that has no credibility, right? And this is one thing that Juba doesn't get. Credibility matter. You can't just lie your way out. This is the rebel mentality. When during the rebel time, you can say anything to get out of the room, but that is not the way it works, right? Now you are a state. You need your credibility. You need reputation. In game theory, we call this a repeated game, right? There is like a one-time game, right, where you never meet the person again. Okay, it's okay there to cheat because the consequences are very low because you will not see this person again. But the problem when you will see this person again and again and again and again and again, and then you build a pattern here where you are not reliable, right? It's very difficult because now the trust will be limited, right? So he has this challenge. And clearly, there is no ability by the government to disarm the civil population. No doubt about it. And maybe at this point, maybe there is no need to disarm the civil population, especially those who are already armed. Right? UNMISS is not going to disarm them. What needs to happen now is to reach some sort of understanding between the communities and now to engage the UN. So this is the good thing about this letter. So now UN become part of really thinking with the people of South Sudan how to create election, because we cannot continue like this, right? With the peace, with power sharing, and the rebels going to the bush, and like a president that is unelected, and a constitution that is not even really a constitution. It's just a question. It's just like an interim constitution. So now UN is going to begin the process of making the constitution. So during this process, right, we are going to discuss what are the powers of the president. Now we get to a point everybody, we find everybody is clapping and clapping. They think this is what is going to continue, but this is not what is going to continue. You're going to have a president whose powers are going to be much, 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 much limited. Right? Governors will not anymore be appointed by the president, will be elected by the people. Members of parliament, commissioners. The president will just appoint his people in Juba. And then the parliament, right? So this constitution will happen. Federalism has been a demand of the people of South Sudan for quite so long. Right? It's going to be incorporated in. So already from the very beginning, from the time when the oil money is extracted, there's going to be sharing to all the states, because we have now realized that Juba is not to be trusted. So that has to be put in the constitution, right? And then simultaneously, because I don't think in terms of security that you are going to disarm everybody. So what you will need to do is sit out with the communities, with the youth, with the chiefs, and all of these people, and agree on how they keep their arms without creating violence, so that elections are held peacefully, and work together as part of a community police with UNMIS and some of the state security organs who will now be facilitating the security, and particularly with the National Army.
Let me read something for you, Dr. Biar, from the letter, then you can actually include it in your answer. Actually, I'm reading from the second page. Acknowledging this, the government of South Sudan hereby requests the United Nations to provide electrical assistance to the government and relevant national institutions in support to the preparation and the conduct of peaceful, inclusive, and credible elections in the Republic of South Sudan. End of quote. I also want to read a quote from the speech of UNMIS head of mission in South Sudan, Nicholas Haysom, on Thursday, January 26, 2023. And he was speaking during the reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission, RGMAC, monthly meeting in Juba on Thursday, January 26, 2023. The quotation. The drafting of the new constitution is a crucial opportunity for South Sudan to define what it means to be a South Sudanese. We want to support an inclusive process that gives a dignified voice to all South Sudanese, but especially including the IDPs, the refugees, women, youth, persons with disabilities, and the other marginalized communities. Importantly, the finalization of the legal framework and reconstitution of the National Election Commission cannot be shelved until 2024, not with logistical challenges that preparation for the election in South Sudan will face. I confirm that the United Nations received the formal invitation from the government to assist in electoral process. This is significant because the authorities in the United Nations to advise and assist with the best practice for the electoral preparation for the election. Dr. Biar, the end of what? My question to you, in the next 1 year and a half, do you think new drafting constitution will be ready, and also return of IDPs and refugees, insecurity? What's going to happen?
No, wait. Let's try to separate these two issues.
Okay.
Doing the constitution is possible within 1 year, but we have to really start now, right? And I think what the government need to do now, because they have by this action, they have actually surprised a lot of people. They have shown that actually they're realizing what is happening and the country is falling apart, and we need to find a way to really bring back legitimacy to the government, because the government is illegitimate. Right? So they have finally realized this. So they are going ahead of this. And I think this is very good, because the international community now, especially the UN, have no choice but to help. And this is what you see already with the Nicholas Haysom doing. But he's not going, but to do this well, is not going to just happen at the level of Nicholas Haysom in Juba. Like, Nicholas Haysom is very important player. But what we need to do now is to have Security Council to actually give him the mandate. So what the government has now requested, that quote that you read from the letter, now need to be incorporated in with the details associated with it, based on the best practices. This is what Nicholas Haysom is saying. So there's going to be a process. And things like the National Electoral Commission is very important, because you need to start on the logistics. So you have to do things simultaneously, two things. There is the logistical side of actually pulling this off. And remember, this is a country without roads. This is a country without a good air transportation system. Right? So you have to figure out how you're going to do the logistics. You have to think about voting population. How do you register them? And then how do you educate them on the process of voting? This is a largely illiterate population. So there has to be a very coordinated civic education program to prepare them for elections, right? This is the first time they're doing them, so that is there. And then second, there is the political side. And this is actually, how do you build a country, a nation? This is the side that Nicholas Asim said. Like, how do you get the people of South Sudan to define what it means to be a South Sudanese? What are their national interests? President used to call us last time enemies of the country. Is it really true that someone like Biara is an enemy of South Sudan? What are really the enemies of South Sudan? What about ignorance? How about tribalism? How about corruption? Things that really divide us and go to the core of who we are, So this is the time now to really define these things and to really have a process where everybody participates. And I like what Nicholas Haysom said there, like the emphasis on inclusivity. This is the only ground where the international community can come in. They cannot come here and take sides. There's a lot of people outside. Paul Malone is outside. Pagana Mum is outside. I am outside. There are many people outside, and they have a critical voice. We are not here because we want to be outside. We're here because there is no political space within Juba for us to continue carrying out our political work. Because at the end of the day, what is the importance of election, Brother Ajek? You say why people should vote for you, and you say why they should not vote for the other guy. Right? That includes criticizing the other guy. And you have a situation in Juba now where President Kiir is intolerant of criticisms against him. So how do you have someone to run against him when he's intolerant to those views? So this is the side that the government has to begin showing now. And to do that very well, number one, they have to release Abraham Chol and all the other political prisoners that are detained in Juba. We are going to be watching for a sign of that to assess the willingness of the government to actually embark on a process that can accommodate political diversity in the country. We are also going to be seeing the behavior of the national security going forward. There has to be a change of behavior. One of the reasons why the country has been unable to hold elections is because of the role of the national security. National security has been undermining the peace process itself. It has been undermining the institutions of South Sudan. It has been engaging in human rights violation, suppression of the critical voices. Everybody that tried to speak politically is arrested by the national security. Somehow they have taken it as their mandate to prevent any kind of civic discourses on fundamental issues that are central to the idea of South Sudan itself. How do you not have a political debate where people fundamentally disagree if you are going to build a nation? There's no nation that has emerged without such fundamental disagreements. And if you have an organization that has decided upon itself that is going to suppress people and prevent any political discussion from materializing, then obviously such organization will contradict with the nation itself and the idea of building a nation. And in this particular case now, and this is why I wanted to be a Security Council resolution, is one, the Security Council actually mandate, and this is the only way it's going to happen. Nicholas Haysom has no power to commit UNMISS in Juba to a serious undertaking like preparing elections, right? The only entity that can authorize him to do that is the UN Security Council, right? And the pen holder of the resolution is the United States. And they have been demonizing, the United States, and they have been criticizing. This is precisely what many of us have been saying for many years, that the government has no capacity to organize elections, and we need the UN to come in and to actually engage in a process. So now, if the Security Council actually mandate UNMISS, and it embarks on the process of organizing elections, and you have somebody interfering with that, right? that is going to be a direct interference in the discharge of a resolution of the UN Security Council. Right? And in this resolution now, because the government is the one requesting it, you're not going to have like China or Russia to veto it. Right? This is a resolution that is going to pass. So national security now has to say to itself, what does it want? Right? Does it want to continue to undermine the possibility of getting toward the elections? Or does it want to protect this process? Right? This is a fundamental question. Right? President Kiir here, by this one single act alone, is trying to distance itself from anything that prevents the country from getting to election. By this act now, it's up to the UN. Right? President Kiir, if the elections are not held anymore, President Kiir is going to say, I have asked the international community for help, and they did not respond. And you know very well there is no way international community is not going to help. International community is going to help. It's going to help the people of South Sudan because this is what we want. Many of us here, you remember, during my speech at the Democracy Summit in 2020, when President Biden invited me, this is what I asked for. I asked the United States to help us to get to elections, particularly through UNMISS. It has 20,000 troops on the ground, and they can be deployed. I wrote an article about this in the African Argument, laying out practically how the forces already on the ground can be deployed in each and every county at the polling station to allow people to actually vote, right? And and individuals like us who are candidates, we can be given the right to not that we need the protection of the UN, but to have the right to organize our own security if the state doesn't want to protect us. And obviously we don't want the protection of the state too. But we can be given a right to organize our own security. And we can organize it. And then we can have election. Right? And now, so I believe here, I think this act is going to pressure us. Now, what we need to do also, and this is what Nicholas Asom is asking for, is the commissioners of the National Election Commission must be appointed immediately, right? And
before you go that, Dr. PR, let me ask you this question. Do you think the current insecurity and the lack of confidence, the stakeholders of the government can have impact on the legitimacy of outcome which risk further violence and disintegration? Do you think?
Well, look, let's try to be fair here. I think the action the government has taken here is very important, right? Is a one realization. And obviously, I agree with you. The communal violence is very bad. It is disintegrating the country. But let's not forget, some of this is actually financed by individuals within the government. So if the government is now showing willingness to really want to organize elections, then one thing that is going to happen, the visit of the Pope is going to have some impact. Right? The question is whether the government will try to use it positively or not. And if they use it,
I don't want to talk about the visit of the Pope because there is an audio of President during the swearing-in of the Secretary General of SPLM. I will play to you, and I want you to. We will go to that.
Okay. No, but the point that I'm making here is that I agree with you. I don't think anyone can be disarmed at this point. And especially in Jonglei, no one is going to disarm. Because there are risks everywhere. It's not just the risk of the intercommunal violence, but there are also political risks, especially if there are elections. And we know what happened last time. President Kiir created this war primarily because he wanted to avoid elections. So this time, UNMISS has to be directly involved in the security of providing elections. It cannot be left to the government. They have to do the security together, right? They're going to have like a mobile units that will move around and try to check if there are issues. That has to happen. And also the candidates, some candidates, because look, no one in Juba is there to challenge Salva Kiir, maybe Riek Machar. But Riek Machar, the national dialogue made it clear that Riek Machar and Salva Kiir, these are people we don't want. And people of South Sudan deserve to have other options, right? They deserve to have other options. and therefore they must be provided those options. And this is why the elections have to be inclusive. So we all know that if they disarm everybody, then they can intimidate people. But now with people armed, they cannot intimidate anyone. And what will happen then is UN will be there should anybody start something, and then the people of South Sudan will also be there. So I think this will be the main way, really, that we can have the election. But what we need to do now,
before what we do now, that actually is supposed to be my question to you. Will UNAMIS and international community, including the Troika, United States of America, assure within its civilian protection mandate the safety and the security of all voters, poll workers, candidates and officials, as well as human rights defenders and activists? Will UNAMIS do that? Because, Dr. Bia, that's very important for you now, if you are now contesting the position of president, running for the presidency, and you are running now with President Kiir. Please reconsider this.
Yes. No, but look, my friend, there is a model to be followed here, right? Let me just give me a second because I want to get this right. Let me.
Okay.
Just 1 second.
Fine.
Okay. So you see, what is happening here, right?
Yes.
Is something that has happened in other countries, right? This is not the first time that it has happened. What we are talking about is what is called comprehensive electoral assistance, right? And if you read the Department of Political and Peacekeeping Affairs of the United Nations, it says that the electoral assistance is provided only at the specific request of the member state concerned, or based on a mandate from the Security Council or General Assembly, right? Now, what does this do? This thing has 5 types of assistance. One is organization and conduct of an electoral process, certification or verification of the election, electoral observation, so that observation of the election, supervision of the elections, and then panels or political electoral experts, and then the coordination of electoral observers. So this thing has happened. The first time it happened were the 1989 elections of Namibia. And what happened back then, the UN actually supervised the election, organized the election, and certified the election, right? And then with the East Timor, 2001 and 2002 and 2007. And in those cases also, the UN directly organized, certified, and supervised the election. Now, those things are a bit extreme, right, for South Sudan, because Namibia at that time was moving toward its independence, and East Timor was under the direct oversight of the United Nations. What we have in South Sudan, the best case actually is what happened in Ivory Coast in 2010, Cote d'Ivoire. In Cote d'Ivoire in 2010, what happened is the UN actually conducted, organized, supervised, and verified election in conjunction, direct conjunction with the government of Cote d'Ivoire. These are the elections in 2010. You remember that were lost by Laurent Gbagbo. Laurent Gbagbo was the president, and he was running against Alassane Ouattara. Alassane Ouattara at the time was the deputy managing director of the IMF. And Gbagbo lost the elections, but then he refused to step down, if you remember. Exactly. And then the UN, because of the mandate that has allowed for the UN to run the election, provided protection for Ouattara, and then ultimately forced Gbagbo down and arrested him.
Do you think that scenario can happen in South Sudan in the coming years?
This is why we don't want it to be a deal in Juba with Nicholas Haysom and Kir Mayadit. You know, we want it now to be a direct resolution of the UN Security Council, because that is the only way that we are going to have confidence that the UN is taking responsibility. And should somebody try to play a game, then there will be consequences.
Very good. The last part of our interview, before actually we are going to finish it, I think, in 30 minutes. I want to read some quotation from the speech of President Kir during the swearing in. And this question of Pope will be the last question, because I want you to connect it to something over here. The quotation, and also want to read the quotation from Kir and also General Garwich. He said something, but Kir said here, the quotation, our problem is that everyone want to be number one, the top seat, and there are people that have made it a point that they must be number one, and that issue of number one is what caused us this war in 2013. Nothing wrong with being number one. They are even me, you too. Everyone go to contest.
This is his way of thinking. He thinks, you know.
Let me continue, brother. It's very interesting. I want you to enjoy it than to talk to the people of South Sudan.
Yeah.
Not regret it, but if I had acted like soldier, do and slaughter them all, there would not be another rebellion in South Sudan. But do not want people to die. However, had they succeeded in apprehending me, would they have spread me? No. They would have killed me. There is, in COP 2013, I have audio, this one. In COP first COP attempt in 2013, I did not arrest Riek Machar and his in-law Taban Dengai. They let, I have the audio of this one, and I will play it. So I want to say that those who will think of attempting another COP, if they do not get me, I will definitely get them. So the question here, Dr. Bia, really, in connection, I don't want you to answer this, but in connection with the visit of Pope. The last point, Kir talked about reconciliation is the most important thing, and those who rebel against me are now the members of my party. If they do not plan another COP, I will not do anything to them. Because my question to you is this really, this comment in this time now, with the visit of Pope to South Sudan, is it relevant? Let me read this quotation from Garwich, Simon Garwich. Actually, Simon Garwich issued a statement on January 25th. I want to read it. This is a complete lie. Taban and Riek did not plan a COP. And it is Kir who planned the COP in order to silence the two men, in order to manipulate election that he was going to lose. So what he said yesterday is not true. And if there is anyone to blame, it is Kir alone who tried to kill everyone who was against him in SPLM party. The second question, I know Taban and Riek are being detained by Kir in Juba. And that is why we want to tell the world that Taban and Riek did not do anything, any COP in 2013. And it is President Salva Kiir alone who planned the COP in order to frustrate effort ahead of election, which was otherwise going to lose in 2015. In the report of Obasanjo, actually, they did not say anything about the COP, and you know that, Dr. Bia. AU investigators found no evidence of COP attempt as claimed by the President Kiir, but instead concluded that the gunfight within the presidential guard was immediately a trigger for the further violence in which, forget about this one. So let me play for you the audio, and then you will connect all this. And the last point you talk about it, and then we can take 2 or 3 questions, and we close the live video. Is actually the visit of Pope of South Sudan, like the question asked here by referent to. Do you think Pope visit to South Sudan will bring anything good to the people of South Sudan? Dr. Biar. So let play the audio. I want to listen.
I want to say it to you here, for those who will think of making another attempt. If they don't get me, I will get them definitely. Because لما نخلي ناس بقلبوا إنه ده ضعف بتاعي ولا ده خوف بتاعي. No, it is not in that way. I thought that even if somebody lost patience and to fight you, if he doesn't kill you, you need not to revenge. In the first coup attempt 2013, I did not arrest Taban and I did not arrest his Nisibu, Riek Machar. Woman, wala naru jaro. Yes, reconciliation is the most important thing. And we are now together. Those who rebelled against me are my members now of the party. Until they make it again, but if they don't do it, I will not do anything to them.
Welcome to the South Sudan Political Club and Voice of the People, Dr. Biar. What are you going to say?
Oh, look, my friend, I think it's sad to be Riek Machar or Taban Dengai there, because there you are used as it's really exploitation. It's political intimidation and exploitation. It's a direct intimidation of these people, especially Taban. It's one thing with Riek, because Riek has his own party. Right. But with Taban is a member of the SPLM, and Taban had grievances. Right? So now the president is talking about this in public. What if Taban also talk publicly about the reasons why he had differences with President Kiir? And obviously, everybody knows there was no coup. There was no coup. There was never a coup. The UN concluded that. It's just a game that he was telling himself, President Kiir. Even last time in the court, he could not even really win his own appointed panel of judges. He could not win them to wrongly convict these people. Just exactly what happened with Kwela Agüero. In the state of allowing what happened with Kwela Agüero, they were embarrassed, so they stayed the case. This is the case of Pagana Mum, Oya Idengajak, Majanga God, and Ezekiel Lolgatkwat. They stayed the case because even their own witnesses disagree with what the prosecutor was trying to allege. And then with the case of Kwela Agüero, now the whole thing was thrown out, so they were even more embarrassed. So at that time, if that had happened, this could have been politically catastrophic to President Kiir. So indeed, there was never a coup. And what happened was there was a slaughter of Nuer civilian in Juba by his troops. And they went door to door. There are so many survivors, And it's very important to say this, by the way. At that time, by the way, there was nearly a breakdown of law and order. And a lot of people suffered. Relatives lost people. Some families were wiped out. And I think to give national security his due credit, Kolkur, he saved a lot of lives that day. And you can talk with some of his own officers.
Right.
The national security was the only entity that acted as a national organization. And they save a lot of people that would have been murdered by killing squads that were organized by people around Kiir. And Kiir knows it. Did he not go to the parliament one time and he said, "You are killing people on my name and stop"? So where was the coup that he's talking about? Just because he was weak and unable to protect the people of South Sudan does not mean there was a coup against him. What happened now after that is Riek Machar now exploited the anger that came out from the Nuer community because of the massacre that happened in Juba. Right? And that was like an emotional reaction, and he knows. This is South Sudan. People are emotional. So what happened was a civil war, and civil war became ethnic at that time. So for him to come now and to use that story to intimidate a member of his own party, it just shows how tone deaf President Kiir is. Like, he don't really get it. What is even politics? Will he not then go to get people of Taban to vote for him? Will people of Taban listen to Taban being talked like that and then agree to vote for Kiir? So what is he trying to say? So here he is creating a very serious contradiction, And then what is really happening, Brother Edward, is that the president, everybody knows he's paranoid, right? Since the incident that happened, you remember the incident of Teterekeka,
Yes.
He has been very paranoid. I mentioned on Facebook the other day, he has fired a lot of people. There are all these suspicions that is going on around.
7 journalists in the jail, including Garang John.
Garang John.
You wrote a comment about him.
Which has elevated the issue. It made it like appear on BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera. People that were, those institutions initially were sympathetic. They were sympathetic. Now, they lost that sympathy, right? And the issue now became trending. It just shows you, I don't know what he thinks, is that this election is going to intimidate people. We are going to contest. You think he's joking? We are not joking. We are going to contest, and we are going to tell people a different vision. How can the whole SPLM tell people, after the people of South Sudan has come out unanimously and said in the national dialogue that our problems are Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, and here is the party that supposedly led the liberation struggle, and they come out and they tell the people of South Sudan, "Maindi na zol tani, ile Salva Kiir, lazim yukun Salva Kiir." Well, if there is no other option within the SPLM, then we will find another option outside of the SPLM. And I said last time, what Salva Kiir has done, he has taken the name SPLM, Isim SPLM, name, the SPLM, and he left behind the ideology of the SPLM and the true members of the SPLM. And he's just going around with looters and food-hungry people that are being bribed with appointments and with cash. And he thinks these are the SPLM people and that he has the people with him. And it's because no one is really countering his narrative. He's the only one talking. And once the Security Council truly mandate UNMISS to do this, we will go and we will also talk. What is this? This is mouth. And we don't just use it to eat. We use it also to talk. So we are going to talk and we will tell the people what is happening. And we will ensure that people understand really where the responsibility of the failure that has befallen South Sudan came from. So okay. Yeah, so the thing is, no, this what he's doing, what he's trying to do is paranoid, right? He's paranoid, and he knows that everybody, there's a consensus. By the way, the thing is, what is amazing is this, and I said in that interview that I did with South Africa broadcasting, for a while, Junubin have been saying this since the national dialogue, that these people should go. And the people he appointed last time, this was his own Dinka Council of Elders. These are the people that he then went and appointed into the national dialogue. And these are the people he used initially to rally up support to fight the Nuer in 2013. Now, these same people, they went and they heard what the people are saying, and the people said, we don't want Salva Kiir Zadu. So now they came back and they told him, my friend, the people tell you that they told us they don't want you. Then he now have problem with them. He sidelined them and he started dividing them, appointing some people and then kicking away some other people. Well, now he's on record. Those of Bonamalwal, they are there. Francis Deng, this thing is on record. Okay? It cannot be undone. Now, when you go to the election in the SPLM, what have you done? So you have launched the road of board. What do people really know the cost? What has happened with the contracts? Was there a bidding for those contracts? How many of it that has been paid? So you promise people money, ideas that are not practical. And then you use that to enrich yourself. All the money goes to your pocket, as if we don't know. It's just because no one has the balls to challenge him. And for some of us, we have already declared that we will have to challenge him. So when the elections truly come now, what is going to happen? I don't think this man will run, in my opinion, because he is. I don't even think people will vote for him in his own village. Yeah? Now he's complaining of the 3 Syrians that have been killed. Does he know how many South Sudanese have been killed? The story that happened to him. Leave alone people going to build a house, somebody going to farm. You just go to farm, you are slaughtered. Did he ever, this is the thing with him. He feels like he's the only one with a body with blood in it and flesh. And his pain is the real pain, but the pain of anyone else doesn't matter. Right? So Junubin has been going through this all this time. So now finally he realized now there is a problem in the country. When he was getting all those reports, what did he think those reports were all about? There were people crying for help, people without power, innocent people that rely on him as the leader to provide security for them. So when he turned his back on them, and now because finally he has been affected by the same challenges that he has been allowing to grow in the country, and that he has been manipulating, right? Like the situation in Jonglei, right? Because of the war, he knows the law supported React. So then he mobilized the Murle, armed the Murle to go and attack Law, and then created all this situation of children being raided. Was it not the cause? So now, what is he really going to tell the people to vote for him? So he is already trying to look for problems, and he has pushed these people. They have studied him, so they just keep quiet, and he doesn't feel anything. So there is energy going out, and the energy is going into the vacuum. And then when that happens, he feels suspicious. Right? This is all with our security. He's suspicious. And then he arrested journalists, and people were telling him not to arrest journalists. Now his imaginations begin to take over, and he begin to imagine certain things and accusing everyone, And the reality is this: I think everyone is beginning now to notice that this man is someone that will use you, and when he has finished with you, throw you aside and move on. Otherwise, who would have ever imagined that Paul Malonga one would become a victim? This in 2013. Now he's talking about the coup. He's remembering the coup. He's not remembering what Malong did for him during that time, to rally Matianganyor, to get it to defend him, to get the Ugandan involved and all of that. He's not remembering that. Now he's remembering, there was a coup done against me. I could have killed people. And using that to intimidate, not just only those people, but others. And what is really interesting, Edward, I check, and this is what I really don't get about our president. I said last time, ambition is a natural human thing. Any one of us can be president. Right. And why would you not want to be president? Why not? Good question. If you really believe that you have something to offer to your people, when people offer it, it's a service. It's not just a naked ambition. You prepare for it. You study hard. You learn systems. You develop yourself. You build networks so that when you are in there, you will do something great and propel your people forward. You don't just do it because you want power. So there is already the natural ambition, but then you prepare for it so that you become capable of discharging the function. President Kiir only prepared so that he has the power to take it, but never to build the capacity that is required so that he can actually be successful at it. And this has made him a very insecure president. So whenever he sees others around him that have the capacity and that could possibly discharge the functions of the presidency better than him, he become jealous of them. It doesn't matter if they are his own children, right? So his own people that he has empowered for years, simply because they appear competent in the eyes of the people, they become threat to him. And especially after the incident that happened. Because remember, all these people were not born so that they can just give Salva Kiir president for life. That was not the purpose that their mothers born them. They have their own objectives. Some of them want to be president too. Why must it be Kiir? So if Kiir is just there, barely alive, not making any decision and just keeping the money and then making you dirty. Imagine making you dirty, making you do the terrible things that he himself cannot do. Huh? And so what? What is your benefit? Money? What if you have already enough money? What if how much money do you want ultimately? So then what? So Salva Kiir here, this is the thing. Salva Kiir here is in his own fix, right? Is his own fix, and then he's trying to look for how to maneuver, but it's difficult because people have now understood him, right? And as people have understood him, he's become exposed. He's become so exposed that he has to be creating a story where there is no story, right? Like this whole thing about coup. What is it for? Who is the target? Riek Machar is not going to do the coup. So who is he trying to target? His own tiger? Or who? Who is he think is the one doing anything to him? Nobody. People are going to vote him out. That is what is going to happen. Because he has refused to listen consistently. And this is the thing. Like the honorable thing he can do now is maybe step down. Okay? And then let Waniga take over for from February until the election time. Let the SPLM organize and regroup. Weed out the NCP element and clear themselves. He can do this. He has a choice. But he's not going to do this because he's a person that is not used to a group interest or national interest. All he's capable of is his personal interest. And he's going to ask, like he asked in 2018, what is my incentive?
I want to ask you.
What is my incentive? This is the question he always asks. What is my incentive?
Actually, Dr. Biar, what is actually behind Kiir speaking in Denka, in Jungule, considering Jungule state actually it has more than two tribes, my brother? What behind that?
The thing is this, my friend, don't even look into that.
Yes.
What you need to really understand is the psychological state of the man. No, but look. I say this with a great deal of sympathy. No, look, I'm really sympathetic. I'm very sympathetic. What has happened since the incident, right? Like, imagine this country, you have to be very strong. This is a country of warlords, right? This is Johnson or Lon, This is warlords. People are burning people alive, right? When you commit these atrocities to protect someone, you don't want to be someone that you think may lose tomorrow or will not even be there, right? Because otherwise, his enemies will be your enemies, and he's no longer there to help you. It's just a simple strategic calculation. And all of these people are warlords. These are strategically train people to think about this game. So to play this game, you want some sort of belief that your allies are going to be somewhat there for some time to protect you, because you need support from them the same way they need support from you. So this has exposed him, right? So he's someone that may be dying, and he cannot really tell what he have, right? Even if it is minor, because nobody will believe him, right? So if he says, there is really nothing, it's just incontinence, then no one believes him. People will expect it to be something worse. So this is really something. So now he has to show, right, that he is still got it. He's still a warlord himself, and he can still act if there is a need for him to act. he can still play and he can still excel. And his whole strategy since 2013 has been ethnic nationalism, right? Ethnic nationalism, with the core of it being Barghazalism, right? And this is why I said last time, he talks about, all this nonsense. But we know the two vices of South Sudan, two vices of politics in South Sudan that he has been exploiting is tribalism and regionalism. So Dinkaism, and then within Dinkaism, there is Barghazalism as his way to manage those on the other side of the river. So now he's playing that card, right? So he plays that card. So now Barghazalism is no longer working, right? Because here is what happened. People came and realized, hey, this guy is using us. Because and this is what I said last time, even in 2004, with the whole Yay fiasco. Oh, Garang is bringing Nialdeng. Where is Nialdeng from? Is Nepsu Barghazal. So what is the problem? There is Barghazal versus Barghazal. So regular average person from Barghazal will not care if it is Nialdeng or Salva Kiir. In fact, Nial may be better because he's educated, so will represent the people well. He's younger, he's a bit stronger, So they have they may have points to prefer him, but he made it last time to be an issue really between Victor John and him. But Nial, at the end of the day, is from Barghazal. So the thing here now, people look around. Like what happened is a lot of people may become even victimized simply because people look around and they see who is still standing, right? And when they look around and they see who is standing, like especially those who have been given their space, right? Because look here, if you are Nandinka and you begin to emerge and you reach certain level, then you have a problem because Kiir will see you as a threat. You have also Dinka, and you come, let's say, from the other side of the river, then now Barghazalism is used against you and you become victimized. So people like Mama Rebecca, Dr. Majanga, God, myself, right? You suffer through this, right? But then now people at some point will realize. So then they will play a quiet game and they will be silent. Everybody will take their time. So now who will begin to shine? It will no longer be people from this river, it will be also people from the other side of the river. And now people that are shining, and then when people ask, okay, who is the next? Because this is the question being raised since the whole incident, right? No, people cannot stop talking about it. This is the interesting thing. And he made mistake too by arresting this journalist. So people have to talk about it. Even if they did not want to talk about it, they have to talk about it because journalists are arrested. So the names that come up are names from Barghazal, right? You get someone like Akolakur is mentioned. He's his own director of national intelligence. And then someone like Rintwenyi is mentioned. He's a governor of Lakes. Yeah. Someone like Akolpor is mentioned. He's a deputy secretary general. So there are these younger, because people want to look, what is the next generation? And obviously, if the Barghazalism is the organizing principle, then why should it only work for Salva Kiir and not for another son of Barghazal? Because if he's using the people of Barghazal to defend leadership, shouldn't people of Barghazal have a right to choose who the leader should be? And if he has been there for 17 years and the power is consolidated within Barghazal, couldn't Barghazal pick another leader? So this question is rising and is no longer a question that can be ignored. I also left out Benjamin Bolmel.
Yes.
He appreciated Bolmel in Bodown. Right? Yes. And he has been appointing Bolmel and promoting him, giving him the contract, giving the resources. Right? So people are also saying maybe Bolmel is also a potential leader.
Yes.
Right? So and if the Barghazalism is the organizing principle.
He appointed him something like security, whatever in his office, something like that.
Senior special envoy, senior presidential envoy.
Continue, brother. Go ahead.
So this is what is happening. So and with President Kiir, because at least for him, he realized Bolmel maybe has no security forces, right? And he's his friend because he does the business in ARC, come back, things goes well. There is donation here, donation there. What, and he doesn't care whether the U.S. knows or not. Sanctions have been applied, whatever. He doesn't care, right? So there is that. So this is, so he has no fear there. Paul is within the SPLM hierarchy also. The same thing with governor of Lake State. So you begin to see like where the concern is, right? And the thing here, look, I say this over and over again. All of us were ambitious, right? All of us, you are not defined by your boss, right? If your boss lead you to a direction that is no longer useful for your long-term interests, you will begin to ignore some of the orders of the boss, right? And if you ignore some of the orders of the boss, especially if you had obeyed other questionable orders in the past, then the boss begin to wonder, where does your loyalty stand? And if you begin now to wise up because you realize the boss is digging you in the hole, right? You begin now to build a body of evidence so that if boss goes down, you don't go down with the boss, right? So say if you are given an order, you will want to record the order, have an evidence of the order. If you are told to do something, you make sure there is evidence so that later on you will say, the initiative is not from me. Because one thing President Kiir is known for, for example, he will agree, he will do something, and then he will be aware, he will give you order to do something, and then if it backfires later on, he will deny that he ever knew about it. So he will say, for example, like if you meet someone on the street, let's say now that he's traveling to Jonglei and all of this, so he go and meet somebody, he say, hey, so, he has very good memory. So, hey, Wallahi, long time I have not seen you. How come you have not come to see me? Okay, he will say that. And the person has been going to his office, let's say for like 3 months consistently, right? And when he comes to the office, people will go and ask President Kiir, and he will say, well, I don't want to see him. Okay. Now we go and see you in Bor. So now he will act, hey, comrade, you don't come to me anymore. And then the guy will say, President, what? I've been coming to your office for the last 3 months. And then your people always block me. Then now you will call everybody. Kev, this person, you've been rejecting him from my office. And he's the one that has been telling you that I don't want to see this guy. Imagine how you feel there. It's as if you don't have dignity anymore as a person. Very dangerous president. And he does this all the time. This is what he does. So he always look for excuse. And then the thing is, at some point now, because you realize he's creating problem for you. And not just even for you, but also possibly for your children. Right? So then what do? You begin to protect yourself too. And you protect the future of your children. Right? And this is a natural human reaction. Maybe he doesn't have this because he doesn't, who knows what he really feel about his children. But other people have this, So the challenge is when he sees that immediately as coup. He sees any criticism of him as coup. This is why to really point Taban out like that, I will be concerned too, because like, what is this? It's a direct intimidation. Like, what is a coup? Last time that one was not a coup, and he's still calling it a coup. Which means he can create deliberately another situation and use that to take you out and say there was a coup.
Right.
Exactly. You see the dilemmas that he creates. And when you create dilemmas like that in an environment where security is volatile, where elite is very suspicious of itself, then you are literally lighting the fire in gasoline. And I've been saying our president is extremely irresponsible. The way he talks is completely irresponsible. And even the one in Bor where he was like saying in Dinka, he want to show it's already creating divisions. Yeah. And he want to show that he still got the Dinka thing.
Exactly.
Right? And then people are organized. There are a lot of Dingabor, my people there, singing and all of this thing, you know. So it's already back to ethnic mobilization, and this is dangerous for South Sudan. And we cannot have elections like that. And I'm glad that he asked UN for this, because UN will have to weigh in on these campaign strategies and what they may mean for the people. Dinka board, they should understand that Kir has used them before. 2013, the whole reflection in 1991 was not because of the genuine care for 1991. Otherwise, he would not then arm the same Murle. Did you think by arming the Murle will just deal with Nuer alone? And when they already know that the Dinka board are part of they treat us as the enemies. Right? So when he did that, and you know very well, when he negotiated the peace with Yao, the Cobra faction was after the 2013 war. And what do you think followed? It was armament, complete armament of the Murle. So then what happened? Did they just use that on Nuer alone? Yeah. And then people were pretending in Juba. Yeah. I go to these funerals taking place about people being killed in Jaleh, Biden, and then people pretend, oh, this is IO. And they are Murle that came. And Murle is being supported by the government against law. Yeah? And you claim that you're community leaders. These people, they claim that we're the one who love this community. How do you love it? When you, on broad daylight, people are being armed, who will then come and use those arms against your people. So Salva Kiir has done this. Now you want to go back to Bor and pretend, oh, I have brought the road. Only one lane, tiny lanes like this, and they're costing $4 billion. Yeah. Are we serious? And then people are thinking and clapping after 17 years in power. When US showed that from 2011, just from Nimble all the way to Juba, with far, far, far fewer resources. So we will have, if the good thing is, my brother, why I'm glad about these requests is the role the UN will play. Because what happened in Ivory Coast, because it's very important for our people to know this precedent. What happened actually initially, the government refused to request from the UN. They did not, because the person they were afraid of was Alassane Ouattara. So what they did was to change the law of citizenship and make sure Ouattara does not even qualify to run for the election. And then they didn't want to involve the UN. So the good thing happened, Ban Ki-moon was very furious about this. And he said, given the persistent failure of the government to prioritize elections and to provide it with adequate resources that would allow for the elections, UN is stepping in. And he asked the Security Council for a resolution authorizing the UN to make sure elections happen in coordination with the government. And they fixed the date, and they appointed people into different coordination mechanisms together with the government, and they made sure the elections happen. And there was security provided. And when the president refused to accept the result, he went to the Supreme Court. He bought all the Supreme Court people who overturned the election. What happened? The UN made sure that the election results were accepted. And when that meant violence, Ouattara was arrested. I mean, not Ouattara, Gbagbo was arrested with his wife. Where are they now? At The Hague, ICC. Okay? So the good thing here is that the government is already requesting.
They brought their head, huh?
This is what I've been fighting for, to make sure it happens. Yeah. So now we will just take the request from New York. It's very strong, right? And we make these elections happen. And then this whole thing try to attack random people and innocent people in Juba, and then try to intimidate them. This will not work.
I want you to make a comment on this short video. before we go to the last question.
This one, I'm just giving you a personal evaluation. I want you to evaluate the SPLM, the activities of the SPLM.
Buildings now in Juba.
What the SPLM
see
has
the light
done.
in Juba. See all the school. People are happy. I don't want to talk about these people have been complaining about the prices in the market and all these things. This is now going to be a story. Because the Council of Ministers, the leaders have decided that the salaries have to be increased.
Are you satisfied with the services delivered?
Why not? Why not? Roads are there. Water now are there. Clean water is going soon. In Juba, it's have to start now. In terms of electricity, all that soon in December now, Rumbek, you can see in Western Equatoria, wow, all these big cities are going to be, there will going to be power. And these are the services needed.
Yeah.
These are the services needed. What do you want from us again? If we are providing the security, as you have seen, now some of the state in Greater Bahar Ghazal are so peaceful, especially Lagos State.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you know this guy. His name is Santo Malek Domesh. He's from Ural, I think.
He likes so much.
But these are the people, you know, these are the interesting class in Juba. There's a lot of people like him, by the way, across all different institutions in the government. And it's something that is extremely concerning for the government and the SPLM. You know, I think he was in Khartoum during the war or somewhere like that. And then he came late, and then he's very good with this propaganda and kissing the leaders, you know, kissing the boot, licking the boot lickers. He's very good at that, and he do that, and he found his way in, and he start going to the house of the president randomly. You know, if there are things being exaggerated to be reported to the president, like back in the day was Majanga God is doing a coup, then he's become part of the delegation because he can talk for things that he has just had for. You know, and before you know it, this guy found his way in the SPLM secretariat. Huh? Like he tried to become a community leader, and I think the church community, and then people were like, "What is this?" So this is the guy. So he knows people are going to watch him, and he knows because this guy, you know, these are there's a people like him in Juba, and they have their groups. You know what they do? You find yourself like 2 Nuers, maybe one from Southern Nuer, one from Northern Nuer. You find yourself maybe like 3 Equatoria, maybe one from Torit, one from Juba, one from Yambio. Huh? Then you form yourself your 2 Anuak or 1 Murule, and then you form a table. You call it a high table. And these are people, by the way, who are connected to the big fish in Juba. Okay? Now you hear where the contract is. Then you mobilize, and you have the connection in the office of the president. You go and get it. You hear what the propagandas are, or the interesting propaganda that the president want to hear, or you know, there are camps, or Riek want to hear, yeah? And then you hear, and you cook, you add into it, and then you go. By the way, Juba now, there is no intelligence anymore. And this is what I used to tell them. I used to tell them this, like, if you build a system like this, in the end, the system will turn on itself, and it will eat itself. Right? Because, like, especially when it is shrinking, when you study like how regime has collapsed, how empires have collapsed, it's usually like this. Yeah. So now there's going back to eating its children, and then propaganda become intense. So he's no longer competing with people outside; he's competing with people inside, and he has to lie more, because now they are going for the election. SPLM, you know, Lambos is there, but you know, Lambos is shaky. There is a Kolopol. There is now too many Rumbek also in there. So then somebody may be weed out. So he want to make sure people know he's there. He's the guy. He's the guy. Why not? Are you happy? Why not? Why? Maybe the last time he received this salary, this guy, maybe a year ago. But because you have access in the market through this backdoor thing, he's out there spreading propaganda. And he's not alone. There are people like him. Very interesting that he's acting that way.
Let me play. I want you to make a comment. I want to play a video of Kwan Manyang in comment in Bor.
Okay.
So I want you to make a comment, but thank you. Victor Vial, thank you.
You're most welcome, Commander. Jamule oye! South Sudan oye! President Kiir oye! Peace oye! Road oye! Your Excellency, President of the Republic of South Sudan, General Dr. Salva Kiir Mayardit, the Vice President of the Republic, the Honorable Governor of Jonglei State, Honorable members, ministers, members of the Parliament, and everyone else. Salam alaikum. Sayyid Rais, another time at Jonglei, Yom Kweselila. Yom Najina, Nagab Rais Vitana, Rais Vitana Jafata Shara, Yamin Yuba, Labor by Sharp Tazara. It means service. As a Fata Tani, Sigatani and Bor, Marshal Ayot. When the Porto Turutani, over Kalamalekum. Antano Kulekum, then Darren Shuru, Darren Salam. Darren Takum, the Gifu Wara, Hukuma Dakum. The Kalam Nana Darino, Benakum. Salam, to live Wara Hukuma Dakum. وبعدين الشغل شارع بيجاب لكم تعمل شنو بشارع ده لازم تخش في زراعة تزرع عشان يكون في سوق للمحاصيل بتاعك. انت بتبيع لبن بتاعك في شارع الان بقى في شارع شيء لبن عند لغايه جوبا. انا شايف الشعب بتاعنا انتم سمعتوا كلام الرئيس ناس بتاع جونغلي شيل بقر بتاعكم من الاستوائيه جيبوا لجونغلينا. في شنو في استوائيه؟ ايش شكل هناك؟ بيس معناته ترجع ما تعمل مشكله مع الزول بتاعك. قش في موجوده في توي، مويه موجود، كل شيء موجود هنا. ما في زول بيسيب اللي بتوع يمشي بتاع الناس ثانيين. نعم ده جنوب السودان تبقى بتاعنا كلنا، لكن كل الناس انتم هنتم. فبالله كل الناس يجيب بقر تمدين. ده كلام اللي انا اقوله وانا اقول لكم لازم تقفوا ورا الرئيس بتاعنا سلفا كير ميادت وحكومه بتاعه وبيعمل الواجب بتاعه كله. ما في زول ثاني ما تقول ولا الشارع ده، في ناس بيقول الشارع ده ولا يقول جاب شارع ده شامل ابدا. ولا شنو؟ الرئيس يا الرئيس بتاعنا كلنا واي حاجه زول بيعمله ده هو. انتوا انا ما قلت لواحد منكم انا قلت جيب شارع ده، انا ما قلت الكلام ده. لكن بسمع من الكلام ده ولا وانت تجيبه، انا ما اجيبه. يا رئيس البلد يا جابه. فبالله انت
We are back, Dr. Biar.
Yeah, this is the thing in the SPLM, right? No one is able to confront Salva Kiir, because the minute if you do that, you become victimized. So everyone has decided to leave him there. You can say bad thing about you, like what he was doing with Taban, and you just let it go. That is the strategy of survival that they have chosen. Now, they think that this is what the country wants. And the country is not for the leaders to do as they want. The country is for all of us. We are stakeholders in the country. Our opinions matter. Our views matter. You cannot come and tell us that we have to stand with the government. Why stand with the government? What has the government done to deserve for us to stand with it? Peace. What is the meaning of peace? Where does it come from? They're the one arming Murle last time to fight with the law, with the white army. Have they taken those arms back? How is peace going to come with those arms there? He said last time that he's not going to intervene or bring in troops to stop the fighting, and that whoever is chased can come to Juba, and then they cannot call themselves a man anymore. Is that a meaning of a government that is willing to create a space for peace? So what I see here is a great leader, Kwal Manyang, back in the day, who has been reduced to only a shadow of himself, who is there just to clap his hand and to say Salva Kiir Oye, although he knows deep in his heart that they have failed. As he said himself, that they have failed and they have destroyed whatever little that was left by the war. So it's always very unfortunate to see him engage in those kind of talk, like what he said last time, that the current situation cannot be blamed on them. It was from the Bible, all this nonsense that he's talking about. Those are someone that has been reduced to a propaganda tool for Salva Kiir, someone who has sold his soul to the very destruction of our country. So it's very unfortunate, but I understand. I understand where that is coming from. This is the view in the SPLM. If you let anyone else speak, that is exactly what they will speak. I think Mama Rebecca said the same thing. These are people that have surrendered. Mama Rebecca, was out there talking, and then you are back in the SPLM, and it's as if nothing has ever happened. So what was the reason then in 2013? Was this what Dr. John was fighting for? Was this the ideal of her husband? The vision that he said that she kept talking about her husband. Was this for it? So it's very unfortunate. But what we have to say is this. Elections are coming. Right? Several years ago, I talked about the need for generational exit. And people did not understand. Not like I wanted people to be killed or, people to be pushed out of the government. No. I was signaling to the younger people that they need to organize, that the elections are coming. And we are the majority. If you look at the census of 2008, those under the age of 45 were 95% of the population of South Sudan. That was from 2008. What about now? We are the future of the country. There's no way we cannot win an election, especially against leaders like this. We have to bring in now greater organization, ability to think, and make sure we contest elections at all levels. This is coming through contestation of ideas. We have to contest with ideas. We have to provide solutions. to problems that our people face. It's no longer sufficient for us to criticize what has gone wrong. We all know what has gone wrong. But what is going to be required of us is what can be done to solve the problem that we face. How do we deal with the issues of insecurity? How do we deal with issues of development? How do we deal with the issues of schools? What resources can we generate locally? What can we bring from outside? Right now, we have resources flowing out of our country. That is something that we must reverse immediately on day one and make sure that the resources are flowing in the country and that the resources are staying in the country so that the wealth accumulates and our people become richer and that they can explore the potentials that God has given them. I always seen that as the responsibility of the government, is to enable every single one of our citizens to be the best that they can be, based on the endowment that God has given them. We have the resources to do it. We have the network. We have a huge diaspora here that is very well organized. We have a diaspora in Europe. We have access to financial services. We have friends in very senior places and highly placed places where we can get the same kind of support like what Ukraine got in terms of development, if we show that we can manage the money and make sure it goes to our people. You know, before I was detained, I put together a proposal to build in each of the 10 states of South Sudan 50,000 homes, 50,000 homes of different kind, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom, you know, and we can fund it with just a small portion of our oil, use it to leverage resources from financial institutions to build this long-term housing development. If you imagine that 50,000, that's 500,000 homes in the 10 states. In a place like Juba, you can build like 200,000 homes. And we have companies that we can speak to and organize like a long-term development. We have teak and monogamy that is being smuggled out that can be used to directly develop our country. How are we going to develop? We cannot build homes. And the plan I had was not just only to build the houses, build houses, schools, clinics with them, and roads, all connected. Urban development, that's how you do it. You know, and you plan it. You let people buy homes. You let them put in endowment. These things can be done, but we need the space that the government creates to ensure that there is security, there is macroeconomic stability, there is stability of the currency and of the exchange rate, that the inflation remains low, the interest rates are low, that all the bottlenecks that are affecting the growth of the private sector are addressed, and that we are creating wealth, we are encouraging investment, innovation, and technology, and creating an environment of freedom that is empowering to our youth, to our women, to our population, so that we really show what we can do. We are a country that is fortunate to get its independence in the 21st century, when the world is so advanced, where technology is so advanced, and we have people that have access and are integrated into all of these institutions that we can rely on to help and to leapfrog our process of development and advance our country and our people within a very short time.
Thank you, Doctor. The last question, actually, then we end the show. Almost we are in 2 hours. What do you think Bob visit? Do you think Bob visit to South Sudan will bring something new to the people of South Sudan, my brother? Peter?
Yes. No, I really believe that. I don't believe that it will do something to the leaders, but it will do something to the people. You remember, Brother Edward, leaders traveled last time to the Vatican.
Yes.
And the Pope kissed their feet. I've never seen an act like that before, because Catholic Church and many Christians, because, you know, we all come from the Catholic Church. We come from the Church of Rome. This was the church that was founded by St. Peter himself. And being the first Pope, has been a direct transfer of authority from Peter, the disciple of Jesus Christ, to Pope Francis, the one who is currently there today. And he's the one that knelt down to kiss the feet of our president and the leaders in South Sudan. That was a very serious sign from the very beginning. What Pope wanted from them was genuine peace and reconciliation among themselves, among the people of South Sudan. They were supposed to come back and immediately create the environment for peace. But they did not. They continue with their games, and we have seen some of the things that have happened, including, what happened last time in Kenya, and then what happened now with the situation in Terekeka. And you begin to wonder, are these connected? Right? Because a lot of people have died, Edward. 400,000 have died. Let's not even talk about those who have disappeared or those who have been killed in prisons, like the Blue House, the one by the riverside, the one in Wau. A lot of people have been killed. And sometimes when these people are being killed, terrible thing is being done to them, right? So people, will vomit, they will urinate, they will bleed, they will defecate, all these things happen. So for that incident to happen last time, there was a concern whether, there was an act of God in it. And our society is very Christian. I believe a lot of people will come to see the Pope. The leaders themselves are very cautious. What kind of conversation will he have with them? Because he will talk with them in private at the very least, because we know with the kind of discretion that he has, the Pope, he can only say certain things in private. So he will talk with the president, he will talk with the other leaders, and they will hear what he says. And they know that God will always reveal that. And if they act again the way they did after he kissed their feet, then they are tempting God. So we will see what will happen there. But I believe the leaders will have that. But what will really be important for me is the people. Because I believe millions of people will come. People are coming from Rumbek, from Wau, from Tony, from Yambio, from Meridi, from Kapoita, from Torit, from Malakal, from Nasser, from Ayod. Junubin are coming. And something like this has never happened before. And they're coming not to see the president, but to see His Holiness, the Pope, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the moderator of the Presbyterian Church. Their presence in Juba and the presence of the clergy and the Christians in the country should be an awakening. Why I say awakening? When we liberated this country, the church was the right-hand man, the right hand of the SPLM, the right hand of the struggle. Without the church, we could never have won our struggle. And what have we done since then? We have opened the gate to Islam in our country. We have allowed Tutkal and his people from NCP to import Islam and spread it like a wildfire across the country. And we have it. This is primarily because we have a leader who doesn't really understand the important role and the position that South Sudan occupy in our part of the world, and where we matter, not just only in the political struggle, but also in the larger moral and religious struggle. And I think that would be very important because we needed that. We have been sleeping and ignoring this. And I think with the coming of these religious leaders, there will be awakening. And I think that will be very huge force that will have a way of propelling the country forward. Because Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and Presbyterian Church are the overwhelming majority church inside the country. And if their leaders really accept peace, because everybody knows where the problem is, I think that will have an impact. So I'm glad that he's coming, but it's not just from just his presence, but what his presence will create among the Christians, not necessarily from the leaders.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bia, for being here with us. And also thank you for answering all my questions almost for 2 hours. I want you actually to give your final comment to the people of South Sudan, and what are you telling them? What is your message to them as an icon, as also a political activist?
Well, thank you so much, Brother Edward. My final message is this. Look, we in South Sudan, we are faced with not very good options. And we cannot wait for the time when everything is perfect. That time will never come. We have to deal with whatever little that we have for now to make a better environment for the change to occur. Elections are the best option out. Otherwise, we are looking at coup. We are looking at other things that may destabilize the country further. The best option is election. And I commend the government for reaching out to the UN to help organize. What needs to happen now is for each and every one of us to take part in this process. Let's not just leave it to the government and the UN, but let's also have a role to play. Communal organization, civil society organization, all different associations have a role to play in educating the people, preparing the ground for elections to take place. So all this violence that is going on in the country, we need to understand that this violence will not solve the problem that we face. We have to make sure that elections happen. And when the elections happen, we can move forward as a country. This is the opportunity the election provided. And with the UN using the model of Cote d'Ivoire 2010 as a model to follow, I believe that this election will be the best the country can get. And we have to make the most out of them. We have to be willing to also struggle for our own freedom. It cannot be given to us by others. We play a role in making sure that South Sudan is free. So let's begin now thinking about elections as a real possibility in 2024, especially December 2024. So we have a year and 10 months to organize. And this is not a lot of time. It requires young people in particular to be very active, refugees to be active. These people may not necessarily come back to South Sudan, but they can vote where they are. They can vote in Kakuma, they can vote in Bidibidi, they can vote in Gambela. Wherever they are, they can vote. They can vote in Sudan. So these options will happen, and we hope that with the people of South Sudan being active and taking these elections seriously, that we can move forward as a country. So Edward, let me thank you. And let me say that you have a role also to talk to other people about elections, get their views. And those who don't agree with the election, what is the other option? We don't have another option. So constitution making process is where it becomes clear, really. Is the government serious about the election or not? Because people will have to talk about what is in the constitution. And people of South Sudan should be free to express their thoughts. There must be a safe environment for people to talk. Because this is our constitution. It's what we are passing on to the next generation. So we have to be able to talk We have to be able to speak our mind. We must not be afraid at all. This is very important. So let us engage in the constitution-making process. Let's just talk about what powers should be the powers of the president. What powers should be kept for the parliament? What powers for the Supreme Court? How do we make sure the judiciary is independent and not controlled by an executive or a president? How do we make sure the court systems are free from political interference? These are the things that we have to make out in the Constitution. So let us prepare ourselves for that. Let us give it the best we have. Because if we don't, we are laying seeds for continued destabilization of South Sudan for years and years to come. Edward, let me end there, and let me thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to engaging with you on this important discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and you have a good of the rest of your evening, brother. And
thank you.
See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. شكرا للمشاهدين منبر صوت الشعب، الناس المشاهدين في فيسبوك والناس المشاهدين في يوتيوب وكذلك الناس المستمعين في كلاب هاوس. شكرا لكم. كنتوا معنا في الحلقة، وكان معنا دكتور بيتر بيارجاك في الحلقة بتاعت الليلة. شكرا، نلتقي معكم في الحلقة الجاية إن شاء الله. Thank you so much. Have a good morning where you are, and you have a good evening. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.
Freedom, 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 yes, freedom, 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 yes, freedom. Some people would say separation is the key. Some people would stay and pretend to be free. Some would be staying in dilemma. Listen to your heart and choose a life. I wanna live in peace. I wanna be free. I wanna live in peace. I wanna be free. Freedom, 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 yes, freedom, 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 yes, freedom. No more bribery in my mama land, no. No more slavery in my mama land, no. My God created me and put me where I should be. My God created me and gave me all the things I need. Who are you to stop me from being who I am? Who are you to take away what I have? Who are you to stop me from being who I am? Who are you to take away what I have? Freedom, 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 yes, freedom, 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 yes, freedom. I can say